The political earthquake in California sent shockwaves through the federal courts. On June 10, 2025, a federal judge delivered a rapid, decisive blow to Governor Gavin Newsom's attempt to halt President Trump's deployment of federal troops in Los Angeles. Newsom and Attorney General Rob Bonta argued the troops were an unconstitutional overreach, but the court was unmoved. Judge Charles Breyer issued his ruling within hours, finding no compelling evidence of imminent harm if the deployment continued. This wasn't a final judgment, just a refusal to grant an emergency stop. The judge told California that political fears didn't meet the high legal bar to halt a presidential order. For Trump, it was an instant victory. For Newsom, a stinging setback. Federal troops already on the ground now had judicial approval to continue their mission. The courtroom clash set the stage for a larger battle, with a formal hearing scheduled for June 12. Both sides will soon present their full arguments. California must prove real harm, not just political rhetoric. Meanwhile, for Los Angeles residents, the legal nuances matter less than the reality. Armed soldiers now patrol their streets. The judge's decision allowed a historic federal intervention to proceed, deepening the nation's divide. The next round will determine if this intervention stands or is reined in. Governor Newsom's lawsuit against President Trump was a bold act of defiance. He argued the troop deployment crossed a constitutional red line, suspecting it was a cover for mass immigration enforcement. Newsom called it a flagrant abuse of power, designed to intimidate a state that opposes Trump's policies. The lawsuit accused Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth of unlawful militarization, claiming the crisis was manufactured to justify a military presence. Newsom insisted local law enforcement could handle the protests, viewing the federal troops as a provocation. This confrontation let Newsom position himself as a defender of state rights and democratic norms. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass echoed these concerns, calling the deployment a deliberate attempt to escalate chaos. The emergency court request was a desperate bid to prevent violence between troops and protesters. The judge's denial meant Newsom's line in the sand was crossed. Now, the fight continues with troops already on the ground. The legal and political stakes have never been higher. California's resistance is now a national test of federal power. President Trump's response to LA's protests was swift. He saw not local unrest, but a breakdown of order demanding federal action. ICE raids targeting thousands sparked violent protests, prompting Trump to federalize 4,000 National Guard members and deploy 700 Marines. The stated mission protect federal property and personnel. But the message was clear. The federal government now controlled security in key parts of LA. Marines in combat gear patrolled city streets, a jarring sight for residents. Law enforcement escalated tactics, with LAPD and federal police using rubber bullets and gas to disperse crowds. Trump claimed his actions saved LA from disaster, framing the deployment as a rescue mission. Vice President Vance told Newsom, "Do your job." The administration's narrative only strong federal leadership could restore order. For Trump's base, the troop presence was a promise kept. For critics, it was a dangerous escalation. The city became a national stage for a battle over authority. The legal fight is about the limits of presidential power. Trump did not invoke the Insurrection Act, which would allow troops to enforce civilian law, a move fraught with controversy. Instead, he used Title X, claiming authority to protect federal property without a governor's consent. California argues this is a backdoor way to sidestep the Posse Comitatus Act, which bars the military from domestic policing. The administration insists troops are only protecting federal sites, not policing civilians. Critics say the presence of combat troops chills free speech and blurs the line between military and police. This is the first time since the 1960s a president has sent troops into a state over a governor's objections. Unlike past interventions for civil rights, this one supports a controversial policy agenda: immigration enforcement. The precedent set here could reshape the balance of power between states and the White House. The legal gray area is now a national flashpoint. The outcome will echo for years. The battle for LA is as much about narrative as law. Newsom frames Trump as an autocrat, using the military to intimidate and erode democracy. His message, California, is the last line of defense against authoritarianism. Trump counters as the champion of law and order, claiming only he can prevent chaos. He dismisses Newsom's warnings as political theater and even calls for his arrest. California's legal team argues the federal presence escalates violence and violates constitutional boundaries. They say state and local police had control, and the troops are the real provocation. The Trump administration insists it's the president's duty to protect federal assets and enforce the law. They point to protest violence as justification, arguing Newsom's opposition can't override federal authority. Both sides are locked in a personal and political feud, each claiming to defend the nation's core values. The court and the public must decide which vision prevails. The stakes, the future of American democracy and federalism. The troop deployment has split the nation, exposing deep partisan divides. Online, #Trump is a tyrant and #Stand with Newsom clash with #Law and Order and #Thank You Trump. One side sees a president overreaching, the other sees a leader restoring order. Polls show over half of Americans support Trump's tough immigration stance, with many backing the troop deployment. The White House bets these images will energize its base, regardless of legal controversy. Democrats rally behind Newsom, warning of a dangerous precedent. Republicans accuse Newsom of enabling lawlessness. The conflict is now a defining political issue, a preview of the 2028 election. Both Trump and Newsom use the crisis to strengthen their national profiles. The nation watches, divided and anxious. The outcome will shape the next era of American politics. The next chapter unfolds in a San Francisco courtroom on June 12th. California must prove federal troops cause real irreparable harm. The DOJ must defend the president's authority. The judge's decision will determine if the troops stay or go, at least for now. Appeals are certain, with the case likely heading to higher courts and possibly the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, protests spread to other cities, turning a local crisis into a national movement. Any violent clash could shift the legal and political calculus. The nation holds its breath as the balance of power is tested. This is more than a dispute over one city. It's a struggle over American governance. The answers forged now will set precedents for a generation. The future of federal and state power hangs in the balance.